Timeless 106.1 FM KFFB. This is Bob Connell. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of our open mic program. And I cannot believe another week has gone by. Senator Boozman is with us right now. And Senator, it seems like we talk daily, but it's only once a week.
No, you're right. This is such a unusual situation with the teleworking and all of these kind of things. And good news is we get a lot done. On the other hand, most of the time you don't know what day it is and this and that, but it is what it is.
Well, there's been so much talk going on. I know in D.C., I think the big cooler talk right now that I've ran into, people are kind of upset about the House thing. $3 trillion. We haven't even got the money from the $2 trillion. What is your take on that, on this particular item?
Really, Bob, when you add it all up, it's not $2 trillion. We've already spent close to $3 trillion already. And we've got still some really significant problems going on in the country, as you know, your listeners know. On the other hand, rather than come up with something that was actually a serious piece, they came up with this. And basically it was just, well, what do you want in the bill? What can we do for every group of people imaginable, including, benefits for illegal immigrants. And it's just the wish list for Speaker Pelosi. So we need to be serious about this. We're in such a difficult situation. Right now in the Senate, we've adopted the attitude that we're going to really see how the dollars are going to affect. Many of the dollars that we have authorized simply have not left Washington yet. And then many that have left Washington and gone to the states simply haven't been spent yet at the state level. So there's a lot of dollars that are going to hit the economy. There's a lot of help coming, but that's really not anybody's fault in the sense of it just takes a while. This is a tremendous amount of money, and as a result, it takes time to actually get it out in the appropriate way. But the idea of just arbitrarily, coming up with this $3 trillion monstrosity that is the wish list, every liberal cause that's out there is absolutely crazy. And I think it's such that it's sad in the sense that we have some real problems, and everybody knows that bill is just a messaging bill. It has nothing to do with anything.
So it's not going anywhere. So we can just put you down saying it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere in the Senate. The president said it's not going anywhere, and so.
That's just talking points for sure.
Why do it?
Wait, right. Now, another thing is neat. You got to meet with the president Tuesday to talk about the flexibility in the CARES Act, which funding came to Arkansas, got $1.25 billion, which is amazing.
Yes, it's a lot of money. And so, again, a lot of that money has not been spent. One of the problems that we had with the initial reading of the law and the interpretation of the law was that the Treasury made that $1.25 billion so restrictive with what they could use it for that they simply couldn't spend it. And so the Treasury's come back, relaxed the rules somewhat, and that's been helpful. We'd like to even relax them even more. Again, making sure that these dollars are going to the appropriate place, helping with the COVID situation that we have, helping with all kinds of various problems that we've got in the state with different entities. The president was there, Secretary Mnuchin was there. I was with 3 or 4 other senators. Really had a very, very good visit. And I think hopefully we'll be able to provide some relief in that regard. The governor's working so hard and his team to get us open back up. But we do need to give them a little bit more flexibility so that they can spend those dollars in a wise way and make it such that the restrictions are so great that it's difficult to actually get them spent. We want to push them out and actually help the people that need to be helped.
And when you look at the $8 million in funds to assist low-income families with energy costs, describe what that means.
Well, we've got a huge problem. We have families that were really struggling to begin with, and then maybe both of them are out of work now, and situations where people fall through the crack. And so this will help those individuals. The other problem we've got with our communities, Bob, particularly our smaller communities, is that we have people that have been laid off, maybe fired in some cases. They're at home using the utilities and things. The business is being closed for the most part, not using utilities. The city has bills to pay. They use the dollars that they get, from those entities. And yet they've told the people that are at home, don't worry about it if you can't pay your bill, if you're short this month in an appropriate way. But as a result of that, they've got a huge cash flow problem. A normal business, myself at the eye clinic, what we would do is borrow some money from the bank. You would borrow some money at the bank to cash flow it and then work hard and things would get better. They don't have the ability to go to the bank and borrow. And so they've got a big problem. So there's lots of things going on that this flexibility that I talked about with the $1.25 billion would help with. And then again, additional funding for things like LIHEAP would be helpful to individuals that have fallen through the cracks.
Now, another big topic that I think is really amazing when we talked to you last was the Congressional Task Force for Reopening America. You guys met again earlier this week to reopen the country safely. Talk a little bit about what's going on in those meetings and what's coming out of those meetings.
Well, I really had 3 meetings this week that were really important, and I think continue to learn a lot, and then also voice opinions based on what's happening to Arkansas. And so we mentioned meeting with the president, and then we also had this task force to reopen the country. And so we were talking about, how can we do that is in an expeditious way as we can, relying on good data, relying on economic data, and then also relying on the data that we get from the infectious disease people. And so a number of very thoughtful people on the call talking about what's going on in their states. And so as a result, trying to give, good advice to the people in the administration. They get to make decisions. Congress gets to make decisions. And so this was an effort for us to work together to try and come up with good criteria to help out. The other meeting that I had was with Francis Collins, who's head of the National Institute of Health, and he's a very, very smart guy. He's a good person, and had a really good visit about the virus and all of the manifestations of it, what they're learning about it, and ways to cope with it in the future. So I think all of those meetings were very, very important, and I think we were able to contribute, and then also just learn more about the current status of lots of different things.
When you look at the supply chain, I know that's something you brought up in the very beginning of this. We got to keep the supply chain open. How do you think the supply chain is going now for all of Americans?
Going much better than it was. The problem, Bob, is that we didn't really realize, the difference in the supply chains with our grocery stores, supply chain with our restaurants. Restaurants might get a 100-pound sack of flour or a barrel of flour. The grocery stores, a 5-pound bag. And so it's been very, very difficult to convert those restaurant supplies, where restaurants are being shut down, so they don't need the things, over to the grocery stores. And then too, people eat out a lot and things that not only restaurants, but institutions, schools, all of those being closed down, and it just doesn't translate to being able to use all of that restaurant institutional supply up. And so that's been a real problem. The other problem that we've had is in our meat processing plants, just with people getting sick. And, we're so thankful to the people that are willing to get in there and work so very hard to make it such that we have the meat on the shelves that we as a nation enjoy and have enjoyed at a very cheap price compared to the rest of the world. Now we're in a situation because of sickness and many of the plants running at diminished capacity. They haven't been able to slaughter the animals, and as a result, they've backed up, and then they start backing up, and you have to euthanize them, and it's really been a huge problem. The federal government has stepped in and provided, with the assistance of the CDC and things, lots of testing, lots of personal protective gear in an effort to help out and keep those open. So it's been a very difficult situation. It's increased the cost of beef to the consumers, chicken, the supply in general. And then, too, the people that produce it, they haven't been able to sell it. So it's something that we've worked really hard with the administration And I think we're in a much better situation now than we were a week or so ago, a week, 10 days ago, but we're still not exactly where we'd like to be.
You know, something I just kind of my own personal take on that is I went to Walmart for a lady friend of ours that's been sheltered in place since this began because she's an elderly lady. But we went to Walmart, and I noticed that they have arrows one way down the aisles. You know, I'm kind of green. I hadn't been out of the studio in a while, so I'm like, everybody's coming, and I look down. I'm like, uh-oh, so I turn around. You know, you're kind of learning the ways. It feels like my first time shopping. I really did. But something I did notice, that they had a cooler full of these little cartons of milk like you had when you're in school. So maybe Walmart is kind of picking up the whole there and helping out, getting one little carton.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Those are items that normally would be sold in a school, institution that they've transferred over. And there's all kinds of little things that we had to get straight. Things are pretty well regulated now. So the stores requirements for labeling are different than in the school setting, the institution setting, the restaurant areas. And so as a result, what you really aren't supposed to be able to do that with the label. Well, we got all that waived. Let's use common sense and get things in. The products are, if they're good enough for a restaurant food, they're good enough for you to take home and drink. But that you're exactly right. Those little cartons are a result of that. The alternative is just dumping it.
Right.
Which nobody wants.
So I think that's really neat. And another thing, we're going to be stronger this way because you know what? We never thought about that before. And I know this is something that the people are smarter than me is going to say, hey, we can have this set up. When this happens again, we can switch pretty easily. And I think that's just something we're all going together and learning.
No, you're exactly right, Bob. And one thing that we're going to do a better job of for sure is not being so dependent on China for our medicines and this personal protective devices that we need, and then just a lot of medical gear in general, ventilators, all of those kind of things. They were made almost exclusively overseas. We don't need to be in that situation.
You look at the ventilators, that was the big national scare. We don't have enough ventilators and we need millions. And all of a sudden, America stepped up, started making those things, and now we got a surplus and sending it overseas.
You're exactly right. We did step up, and that's what America's all about is able to do whatever it takes. And then the other thing that we've been blessed with is when you look at the projections early on compared to what's happened in our country, and we've had this tragic loss of life. Gratefully so, it hasn't been as much as some predicted early on. Not only with loss of life, but our hospitals being filled to the brim with people on ventilators. So in most parts of the country, that's a better story than what we expected.
Well, there was one thing I thought was really neat that you participated in. That's National Police Week going on this week. And you delivered a speech on the Senate floor in recognition of the Arkansas law enforcement and those that gave the ultimate price to serve our state.
I was so pleased to get to do that and talk about the sacrifice and the service of our people that actually run to the danger instead of run from it. The 1% of people that do a job that the rest of the nation really doesn't want to do. And we're so grateful that we've got people that are step forward and do those services for us. We were really honored to talk about Sergeant Michael Stephen Jr. and his sacrifice. We had another officer in Fayetteville, Stephen Carr. They were both added to the memorial this year, and so those are nice things to do. And it's just good to take a second and just voice what we all feel in our heart, but really voice our gratitude for those that serve, and then too our concern for the individuals that serve and lose their life, for all of us who are true heroes in every aspect of the word.
Well, without them, we wouldn't be as safe as we are today, and our hats go off to them and their family and keep them in their prayers.
Yeah, we just take it for granted,
Absolutely.
And you're exactly right, Bob, that, remembering them, and it shouldn't be, once a year or a month dedicated, and it's easy to say these things, but certainly these families, these individuals, as they go to work, we need to keep them, in our thoughts and prayers on a continual basis. Thank them, when we see them.
Absolutely. When we do see that, and that's something, as we said, it's so important for us to remember that every time they get up and put their uniform on, that they're to be called upon. So it's awesome. I noticed here that we've been talking about food each week, and something my son got onto me. I had a box of Slim Jims. Did you know how many calories the Slim Jims have per unit?
No. So the description doesn't fit the calorie.
No,
the Slim Jim doesn't fit the calorie content.
These are like little bitty baby ones. And he says, Dad, those are 40 calories apiece. If you eat 4, that's like 160 calories. I'm like, I can't just eat 4 of those. Those are like babies. Oh, I'm telling you, I'm really having trouble finding stuff to eat.
I know, but that's better than eating. How many M&Ms did you say was the calorie content?
It's like a handful. It's a bunch of those vanilla Oreos. Those were the killers. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
Got to put those up. So we've been watching that. Seems like we've been doing a lot of snacking as we've been working and listening to the governor for an hour a day. I've listened to him more than I have any politician now. So I guess he is now the most listened to politician in the history of the state of Arkansas.
I think so. And we appreciate his hard work. And again, the team that he's surrounding himself with, the economic team that are working hard, and then also our infectious disease people that are giving him advice. And these are difficult decisions that they're making. And I think decisions are being made, and then, you learn from them. And so it's everybody working together to get us back on track and get the economy opened up as quickly as we can. And yet, using common sense, practicing the social distancing, wearing masks when it's appropriate. And I know that you, Bob, like me, you worry about yourself. Nobody wants to get sick. But I think, we should worry even certainly as much or more about not infecting somebody else that might be in a situation with underlying diseases, conditions that can make this disease a very, very serious problem.
That's true. And then one other thing before we let you go, the community health centers are expanding to 2,000 tests per week to help hit the 60,000 goal for the state of Arkansas. But that has come from some of the funding that you guys got taken care of for the rural health clinics. So I thought that's kind of neat to see that come about.
No, I have all the respect in the world for the community health care clinics. They do a great job. They help people that do fall through the cracks and now are on the front lines as always. And so we appreciate them, appreciate their personnel. They are doing a very, very good job in testing. We did give them a significant amount of money throughout the country so that they could, maintain the great work that they do. And they are doing a good job testing. And we're going to need to do a lot more testing as time goes by, because that is going to be one of the keys. As we start opening schools, as we start opening, our colleges and universities, along with K through 12, and then all of the various businesses. Testing is going to play a big role in that. The good news is that the testing is much more available than it was, and so we're going to continue. We gave a really significant amount of money, $25 billion, regarding testing and developing a vaccination that really is going to be the key to this. And then also trying to develop good treatments. And so we have one that is on the market now, being approved. That's being pushed out. And I suspect, after visiting with Dr. Collins, who I mentioned earlier, the head of the National Institute of Health, who's a brilliant guy, he's very optimistic that we'll see others in the not too distant future that would really make a huge difference in fighting this disease.
Some great news to come forward. I am really proud of all of our Kansans and America, because we have really stepped up, and we've seen it time and time again, just like the ventilators. We don't talk about the goals that we've achieved. Sometimes we talk about the goals that look like it's a train wreck coming, but we don't talk about that we made it. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I agree totally.
Well, thank you so much for taking time and talking with us. And what do you see on the radar for next week?
I think next week we will be talking about the appropriations process. Also, we'll be talking about additional infrastructure. But one thing that's hanging out there that's so important is the big Highway Trust Fund bill that supplies about 40% of the average state's infrastructure regarding highways and roads, things like that. That's something that we authorize every 5 years. It ends on September 30th. And so I'm on a committee that has jurisdiction on that. We were able to pass it out of committee. Now we're looking for various ways to pay for it. These aren't glamorous things, but they're really important. This kind of thing is kind of the backbone of the country.
Well, thank you so much for taking time and updating us this week, and we will see you tomorrow. Even though it's next week, it feels like tomorrow.
Thank you so much, and as always, for letting us visit with you.